Have you ever noticed how life seems to never run out of problems? Bills stack up, arguments happen, unexpected obstacles appear. Sometimes it feels like every day brings a new storm. And yet, the real enemy isn't the storm itself. It isn't even the problem sitting right in front of you. The real enemy is when you allow those problems to dominate your mind. When you replay them endlessly at night. When you carry them like heavy chains that make you wake up exhausted instead of renewed. This is where Stoicism steps in with a truth that is both harsh and liberating. You cannot control the outside world. You cannot stop the storms. You cannot erase adversity, but you can always control one thing, your response. And that single choice, how you respond, determines whether you remain trapped in chaos or rise above it with clarity and strength. Think about it. Two people face the exact same setback. One loses sleep, blames the world, and sinks deeper into frustration. The other takes a deep breath, accepts what happened, and asks, "What can I do right now that actually helps?" Same event, completely different lives. The difference is not luck, it's self-control. And here's the truth most of us forget. Every time you focus on the problem, you give your power away. But when you focus on solutions, even the smallest step forward, you reclaim ownership of yourself. You begin to walk differently. You speak differently. You carry yourself with a kind of calm that no storm can steal. That's why in this journey, I want to share with you 10 powerful Stoic habits, practical tools you can start using today, that will train your self-control and help you stop wasting energy on chaos, emotion, or blame. These are not abstract ideas, not just lofty philosophy. They are simple habits, sharp practices that will give you the strength to remain calm under pressure, the discipline to act instead of complain, and the clarity to focus on what truly matters. Maybe you've felt like life is pulling you in 100 directions. Maybe you've been drowning in stress, or you've caught yourself reacting in anger and regretting it later. If so, this could be the turning point. Because the truth is, you don't need the world to change for you to reclaim your strength. You need only to change your focus, from problems to solutions, from chaos to self-control. So, as we begin this journey together, let me ask you, are you ready to stop surrendering your peace to the problems around you? Are you ready to take back control, one habit at a time? If your answer is yes, then stay with me, because what you're about to learn could become the foundation of a calmer, stronger, and more unshakable life. Habit 1. Stay calm in the face of emotion. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you said or did something in the heat of the moment that you later regretted? Maybe it was snapping at a loved one, firing off an angry email, or making a decision out of fear that closed a door you actually wanted open. If we're honest, most of the biggest mistakes in life don't come from a lack of knowledge. They come from the moments when our emotions hijack our reason. Think about it. One angry word can end a relationship. One choice made in fear can cost you a golden opportunity. One decision fueled by frustration can set you back months, even years. And afterward, when the storm has passed, we often sit there wondering, why didn't I just stay calm? The Stoics understood this deeply. They never said emotions were evil or that we should pretend we don't feel them. In fact, they believed emotions are natural, even useful. But here's the key. Emotions are data, not commands. They give us signals, fear, anger, sadness, excitement, but it is up to us whether we obey them. True strength, the Stoics taught, is not about being emotionless. It's about being able to stand in the middle of the storm. Notice the surge of anger or fear rising in your chest, and still pause long enough to ask, what response will actually serve me? Serve others, and serve this moment? Think of Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor who carried the weight of an entire empire on his shoulders. He faced betrayal, war, and endless political chaos. Yet in his private writings he reminded himself, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That line is more than philosophy, it's a survival strategy. Now, let's bring it down to our own daily lives. Imagine you're in a meeting, and someone interrupts you mid-sentence. Instantly, your heart rate spikes, your face heats up, and the thought flashes, they disrespected me. The automatic reaction is anger. Snap back. Raise your voice. Prove your point. But if you pause, even for a breath, and reframe the moment. A different possibility opens. Maybe they're just excited. Maybe they didn't realize. You smile, acknowledge them, and then calmly continue. Same event, two very different futures. Or think of rejection in love. The story that often comes up in our heads is, I'm worthless. I'll never be enough. That frame destroys confidence and keeps you stuck. But if you pause, you might reframe it. This simply wasn't the right fit. Now I have the chance to find someone truly aligned with me. Again, same event, two different stories, two different lives. Modern psychology calls this cognitive reappraisal, the ability to reinterpret a situation in a way that changes how we feel and act. But the Stoics were practicing it thousands of years ago. They knew calmness is not weakness, it is power. Because calmness gives you the freedom to choose. Let me share something personal. I once had a colleague who loved to push buttons. Always quick with criticism. At first, I'd get defensive and snap back, which only made things worse. One day, I decided to experiment with a Stoic principle. Instead of reacting, I paused, took a breath, and thought, what response here actually serves me? Instead of firing back, I asked a question. Can you explain what you mean? That one pause changed the entire dynamic. The tension diffused, the relationship improved, and most importantly, I began to trust myself more, because I proved I didn't have to be controlled by someone else's words. And that's another powerful effect of calmness. When you remain steady, others begin to trust you. Why? Because they see you can't be easily shaken. But even more importantly, you begin to trust yourself. You develop a quiet confidence that no matter how fierce the storm, you can stay anchored. Epictetus put it simply, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. That sentence has saved countless people from drowning in anger, grief, and fear, and it can save you, too. So how do you practice this habit in real life? Let's make it practical. Notice the signals early. Pay attention to your body. A quickening heartbeat, shallow breath, clenched jaw. These are the first alarms that emotion is about to take the wheel. Pause before reacting. Take one deep breath. Count to 3. Step back if you need to. This small pause creates a gap big enough for reason to step in. Reframe the story. Ask yourself, what else could this mean? What response will serve me best right now? Even shifting your perspective slightly can transform anger into patience, or fear into courage. Choose your response. Remember, you're not avoiding emotions. You're mastering them. Let your response be guided not by the heat of the moment but by the outcome you truly want. This is not easy. At first, you'll still slip. You'll still react too quickly sometimes. But every time you succeed, even just once, you lay another brick in the foundation of self-respect. Over time, those bricks form a fortress of calmness and clarity that no storm can easily tear down. So next time your emotions rise like a tidal wave, ask yourself, am I going to let this wave carry me wherever it wants? Or will I learn to surf it, using its energy but staying balanced on my own terms? That is the essence of Stoic self-control. It's not suppression. It's not pretending you don't care. It's the art of noticing, pausing, reframing, and then responding with wisdom. And once you begin practicing this, you'll notice something amazing. Emotional storms aren't your enemy anymore. They're your training ground. Each one you endure makes you wiser, stronger, and calmer than before. Because calmness isn't just a feeling, it's a decision. A decision to focus on solutions, not problems. A decision to reclaim your power. One pause at a time. Habit 2. Replace complaints with action. Let me ask you a simple but uncomfortable question. How much time do you spend complaining? Think about your day. How often do you mutter under your breath, "This job is boring," or sigh, "My life is so unfair," or whisper to yourself, "Things never change for me"? It might feel harmless, but the truth is, every complaint is like a slow leak in your soul, drop by drop draining your energy, your spirit, and your strength. Complaining is like sitting in a dark room with a dripping ceiling. At first, the sound is small, maybe even ignorable, but drip by drip, it begins to wear on you. Soon, the sound is unbearable, and you're left restless and powerless. That is exactly what happens in our minds. Every time we complain, we feed that drip, and by the end of the day, we don't feel exhausted because life was too heavy. We feel exhausted because we've been leaking strength with every sigh and groan. And here's the harsh truth. Complaints never solve problems. Imagine standing in front of a fire and screaming, "Why is it burning? Why is this so unfair?" You can shout all you want, but the flames won't care. The fire only dies when you pick up a bucket of water. The Stoics warned us about this trap. Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. Don't just talk about your struggles. Don't endlessly describe the pain. Do something about it." Complaints make you weaker, but action, even the smallest step, makes you stronger. Now, let's make this real. Imagine you come home and your desk is a complete mess. You sigh, I can't stand this chaos." But instead of continuing the loop, you take 5 minutes, just 5, to clear the desk. Suddenly, the room looks brighter, your spirit feels lighter. Nothing dramatic, but that small action plants the seed of confidence. I can change something. Or think about health. One person says, "I'll never lose weight," as they keep reaching for junk food. The result? Their sense of helplessness grows heavier with every bite. Another person feels the exact same struggle, but instead of giving in to the complaint, they put on their shoes and take a 10-minute walk. 10 minutes, that's all. But do it daily, and that walk becomes a habit. Months later, not only has their body changed, but they've built something far more valuable: faith in their own discipline. Neuroscience backs this up. Complaining may give you a short burst of release, but it traps you deeper in victimhood. Action, on the other hand, triggers dopamine, the brain's neurotransmitter for motivation, joy, and control. It's nature's way of saying, "Well done, keep going." But here's the beauty. You don't need grand heroic moves. You don't need to conquer Everest tomorrow. You only need to choose the smallest next step. Instead of complaining about your inbox, send one email. Instead of whining that the kitchen is dirty, wash just 5 dishes. Instead of sighing that life is stuck, write down one idea you can act on this week. Every time you replace a complaint with action, you send yourself a powerful message: I am not a victim. I am a creator. And the more you repeat that message, the more you start to believe it. Over time, it becomes your identity. Now, let's pause and reflect. Ask yourself honestly, what complaint do you find repeating in your life? Is it about your boss, your health, your relationships, your lack of money? Whatever it is, I challenge you right now, replace it with one action. Not tomorrow, not someday, today. Here's the thing. Life is not waiting for your sighs. The world doesn't pause because you're frustrated. But the moment you take action, even small, you shift the balance of power. You move from helplessness to agency, from despair to direction. Let me share a story. A friend of mine once lost his job unexpectedly. For weeks, he sat at home, sinking into complaints. Why me? Why now? The system is unfair. Every day, his spirit got heavier. Then, one morning, something shifted. He said, "Instead of asking why, I'll ask what." And the question became, what can I do today to move forward? He updated his resume. He reached out to 2 contacts. He learned a new skill online. Within months, he not only found a better job, but he carried a stronger belief in his ability to rise again. That transformation didn't begin with a miracle. It began the moment he replaced his complaint with action. The Stoics never sugar-coated life. They knew hardship is real, injustice is real, pain is real, but they also knew this: you always hold the power to act. Maybe not to change everything, but to change something, and that something, done consistently, can transform your life. So let me challenge you with this. The next time you catch yourself complaining, stop mid-sentence. Instead of saying, "This is too hard," ask, "What's the smallest thing I can do right now to make it better?" Then do it. And watch how quickly the darkness begins to retreat. Remember, every complaint is a drop of energy wasted. Every action is a spark of power regained. One will drain you, the other will build you. The choice is yours. And if you choose action often enough, you'll notice something profound. You'll stop identifying as the powerless victim of your circumstances. And you'll start seeing yourself as the architect of your future. And that shift, that quiet revolution in your mindset, is where real freedom begins. So don't just talk Stoicism. Don't just admire it from a distance. Live it. Replace complaints with action, and soon, you won't need to explain your philosophy to anyone, because your life will speak louder than words. Habit 3. Catch yourself when thoughts loop. Have you ever found yourself lying awake at night, replaying the same conversation over and over again? Maybe it was an argument with your partner, a mistake at work, or an embarrassing moment you can't seem to shake. You keep thinking, if only I had said this, if only I had done that. Hours pass, but nothing changes except that you're more exhausted the next morning. This is the trap of mental loops. Circular thinking. It gives us the illusion of effort. We feel like we're solving the problem, but in reality, we're just running in circles. Like a hamster on a wheel, moving fast but going nowhere. The Stoics knew this trap well. They warned that our suffering often comes not from events themselves, but from the endless stories we tell ourselves about those events. Think about it. The problem doesn't actually get better when you replay it for the 50th time. The argument doesn't resolve. The mistake doesn't disappear. The opportunity doesn't return. All that happens is your energy drains away. Your anxiety rises, and your mind grows more restless. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The loop is proof that we've forgotten this power. We're giving control to the past, when in truth, the past no longer exists except in our imagination. So how do we break free from these loops? The first step is awareness. The moment you catch yourself thinking, "I've been replaying this for too long and nothing new is coming," that is the signal. That's your cue to change direction. Here are 4 practical ways to do it. 1. Write it down the instant you put your thoughts on paper. You take them out of the echo chamber of your head. On the page, they look smaller, clearer, more manageable. You create distance between you and the problem. And in that distance, clarity returns. 2. Ask a better question instead of spiraling around, "Why me? Why did this happen to me?" Which only makes you a victim. Ask, "What can I do right now?" That one shift transforms helplessness into possibility. It directs your energy away from endless loops and toward action. 3. Move your body. Your mind and body are deeply connected. If you're curled up, frowning, barely breathing, your mind stays trapped. But the moment you stand up, stretch, take a walk, or breathe deeply, the spiral weakens. It's like opening a window in a stuffy room. The fresh air rushes in, and the heaviness begins to lift. 4. Change your environment. Sometimes the loop continues because your surroundings reinforce it. If you're stuck at the same desk where the argument happened, get up and step outside. A new environment can spark a new perspective. Let's make this real with an example. 2 people experience the same painful argument. The first one replays the dialogue all night long, tossing and turning every "what if," dragging them deeper into frustration. By morning, nothing has changed, except that they are drained and defeated. The second person, equally upset, grabs a notebook and writes down their thoughts. Seeing them on paper, they realize what really matters. Tomorrow, I'll speak again, but this time with a calmer tone. That single choice transforms the same storm into a path forward. I'll tell you from my own experience, this practice has saved me countless times. I once had a heated disagreement with a close friend. For days, I replayed it in my head. What I should have said, what they should have done. The loop was endless. Finally, one night, I opened my journal and wrote everything down. As the words filled the page, the storm inside me softened. I realized most of my anger came not from what they said, but from the story I had built around it. Writing gave me perspective. The next day, I reached out, apologized for my part, and we talked calmly. The friendship grew stronger. Without breaking that mental loop, I might have lost it forever. This is why catching yourself matters so much. Each time you notice and interrupt the loop, you reclaim a piece of your power. You stop being dragged by old thoughts and start guiding your mind back to the present. And here's the deeper lesson. Thought loops are not just annoyances, they're training grounds. Every time you resist the spiral, you're strengthening your mental discipline. You're proving to yourself that you are the master of your mind, not its prisoner. But let me also warn you, breaking free doesn't always bring instant results. There will be times when you catch yourself, write it down, ask better questions, and still feel stuck. That's okay. Progress often comes quietly, one choice at a time. Each small break in the loop is like a crack of light in a dark room. Over time, those cracks merge, and suddenly the whole room is filled with light. So the next time you catch your mind spinning endlessly, ask yourself, am I moving forward? Or am I just replaying the same story? If the answer is the latter, stop, write it, reframe it, move your body, change your environment, do whatever it takes to step off the wheel. Because here's the truth. You cannot control what already happened. The past is beyond your reach. But you can always control what happens next. And that control begins the moment you stop looping and start living. Habit 4. Keep moving, even if progress is slow. Let me ask you something. How many times have you started something with passion, only to give up when results didn't come fast enough? Maybe it was learning a new skill, building a healthier body, or working on a personal project. At first, the excitement burned bright. You were motivated, unstoppable. But weeks later, when progress felt invisible, when the results didn't show up as quickly as you hoped, the fire dimmed, and eventually, you quit. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. Most of us aren't defeated by lack of ability. We're defeated by lack of patience. Here's the truth no one likes to hear. Real progress rarely arrives like a lightning bolt. It doesn't explode into your life overnight. More often, progress looks painfully slow, almost invisible, like a seed buried beneath the soil. You water it, you tend to it, you care for it day after day. And for weeks or months, nothing happens. The ground looks the same. And that's the moment where most people give up. But here's what the Stoics remind us. No great thing is created suddenly. Those words from Epictetus should be etched into our minds. Nothing worthwhile, nothing lasting, nothing truly great ever comes instantly. It always demands patience, endurance, and repetition. Think about it. The body doesn't transform after one workout. A relationship doesn't deepen after one conversation. Mastery doesn't come after one attempt. The results that matter most, the ones that change your life, always take time. Let me paint a picture. Two people set out to learn a language. The first dives in obsessively, 5 hours a day for a week. Then, exhausted, they quit. A year later, they've forgotten everything. The second studies for just 15 minutes a day. Small, almost laughable, but they keep going, day after day, for a year. By the end, they're fluent. Who won? Not the one who burned the brightest for a moment, but the one who kept the flame alive consistently. It's the same with fitness. In the first 3 months, you might look in the mirror and see no difference. It's easy to think, this isn't working. Why bother? That's when most people give up. But those who keep going, 6 months later, a year later, look back and realize their body, their health, their confidence have transformed. The change was happening all along. They just needed to keep walking through the silent stage. This is the critical truth. Moving slowly is not failure. Stopping is. The Stoics knew that impatience is one of our greatest enemies. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is endurable, then endure it. Stop complaining. Everything worthwhile takes time." He ruled an empire, faced endless wars, betrayals, and crises. And yet he reminded himself daily, endurance, not speed, wins the real battles. But how do we apply this in our modern lives? Let me give you a personal example. Years ago, I started writing. At first, I dreamed of instant success, thousands of readers, recognition. But for months, I felt like I was writing into the void. No one seemed to notice. I almost gave up. Then I remembered the Stoic lesson. Focus on the process, not the applause. So I kept writing, 1 page a day. Then another. Slowly, quietly, something shifted. People began to read. My voice grew stronger. Looking back now, I realize the invisible days, the days when I saw no results, were actually the most important. They built my resilience. The same principle applies to every area of life. The question is, are you willing to walk through the desert of slow progress? Or will you abandon the journey before the oasis appears? Here's a practical way to cultivate patience. Set process goals, not just outcome goals. Don't just say, I want to lose 20 pounds. Say, I will exercise 20 minutes a day. That's within your control. Celebrate small wins, even if no one else notices. Honor yourself for showing up today. Each step is a brick in the foundation of something great. Remember the long view. Ask yourself, where could I be 1 year from now if I don't stop? That perspective shifts your focus from the frustration of today to the possibility of tomorrow. Let's contrast two kinds of people. The first chases shortcuts, life hacks, quick tricks, secret formulas. They start strong, burn hot, then burn out. A year later, they're right back where they started. The second accepts the slowness. They keep walking, one small step at a time, even when nothing seems to be happening. A year later, they've built something solid, something others can only admire. Which life do you want? I'll leave you with this image. A gardener plants a tree. For months, he sees only barren soil. Friends laugh. Nothing is growing, but he keeps watering. He keeps tending. Then, one day, a small green shoot breaks through. Years later, that shoot has become a tree, strong, tall, and unshakable. The harvest always comes, but only to those who persist through the silent days. So the next time impatience whispers, "This is pointless," give up. Remember, slow progress is still progress. Each step matters. Each day counts. And if you keep moving, one day you'll look back and realize you've traveled farther than you ever imagined. Because greatness isn't built in an instant. It's built in the quiet, unseen moments when you choose to keep going. That is the Stoic way. That is the power of patience. Habit 5. Create a pause before reacting. Have you ever fired off a text or an email in the heat of the moment, only to regret it seconds later? Maybe it was a harsh reply to your boss, a cutting message to a friend, or a defensive comment in an argument. At the time, it felt right. Your chest was tight. Your pulse was racing. Your mind was screaming, "Say it now." But once the storm passed, all that was left was regret. This happens because our brains are wired for speed, not wisdom. In moments of stress, neuroscientists call it the amygdala hijack. When we feel threatened by criticism, by anger, by stress, our emotional brain takes control. Fight, flight, or freeze. Logic shuts down. Reason gets pushed aside. And that's when we make decisions that damage relationships, careers, and even our self-respect. But here's the good news. We can stop this hijack. The Stoics had a simple, timeless practice that modern science now confirms. Create a pause between the event and your response. Think of that pause as a bridge. On one side is the trigger, the harsh email, the insult, the unexpected setback. On the other side is your reaction. Most people sprint across the bridge without thinking, letting their emotions drag them into conflict or panic. But the Stoic learns to stop in the middle, to breathe, to see the situation clearly before stepping forward. Let's make this practical. Imagine you just received an angry email from your boss. Your fingers hover above the keyboard, ready to unleash your frustration. If you respond instantly, chances are the situation explodes, conflict escalates, respect is lost. Trust is broken. But what if instead, you pause, you close your laptop, take 30 minutes, maybe even an hour, you breathe, you reflect. Then, when you finally reply, your words are calm, measured, constructive. Instead of burning a bridge, you build one. Same event, two completely different outcomes. The difference wasn't in the problem, it was in the pause. Marcus Aurelius captured this perfectly. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. In other words, it's not the event that destroys your peace. It's the meaning you instantly attach to it. The pause gives you time to revoke that false story and choose a better one. Now, let's be honest. Creating that pause isn't easy. In fact, it feels unnatural. Everything in your body screams for immediate reaction. But here's the truth. Calmness isn't slowness, it's freedom. It's the freedom to choose wisely, instead of being dragged around by your emotions. Here's how you can train it in daily life. 1. Notice the trigger. Pay attention to the signs, your chest heating up, your jaw tightening, your breath getting shallow. That's the amygdala knocking at your door. 2. Pause and breathe. Even a few deep breaths can interrupt the hijack. In those few seconds, you shift power from your emotional brain back to your rational brain. 3. Reframe the moment. Ask yourself, what story am I telling about this event? Is it the only possible story? For example, instead of, "My boss hates me," try, Maybe they're under pressure themselves. How can I respond in a way that helps, not harms? 4. Delay your response. If possible, wait before replying. 30 minutes, an hour, even overnight if needed. Time brings perspective. Let me share a story. A friend of mine once got a scathing message from a client. His first instinct was to fire back defensively. But instead, he remembered this Stoic habit. He put his phone down, went for a walk, and returned later with a calmer mind. His reply wasn't defensive, it was professional, constructive, even empathetic. Not only did he keep the client, but the relationship grew stronger. Why? Because he built a bridge with a pause instead of burning it with a reaction. Now compare that to someone who always reacts instantly. They become known as hot-headed, unreliable, easily provoked. Over time, their relationships suffer, their opportunities shrink, and their confidence erodes, not because they lacked intelligence, but because they lacked the discipline to pause. So let me ask you, where in your life do you need more pauses? Is it in your conversations with family? With coworkers? With strangers on the road? Imagine how much lighter your days would feel if you weren't constantly dragged into conflict by impulsive reactions. The pause is small, but it's powerful. It's not just about preventing mistakes, it's about reclaiming ownership of yourself. Because when you pause, you're no longer a puppet of circumstances. You're the author of your response. And that is the heart of Stoic self-control. Life will continue to send storms your way. Harsh words, unfair treatment, unexpected challenges. You can't control those, but you can always control whether you rush headfirst into the storm, or whether you pause, breathe, and walk through it with clarity. So next time you feel the fire rising, remember, don't let the amygdala hijack your life. Take the pause, cross the bridge slowly, and choose the response that builds solutions, not more problems. Because in that pause lies your power. And once you master it, no one, not your boss, not your critics, not even your own emotions, can take it away from you. Habit 6. Act early before fear grows bigger. Have you ever noticed how fear rarely arrives like a sudden explosion? It doesn't usually hit like thunder. Instead, it sneaks in quietly, almost invisibly. It begins as a small thought, I'll do it tomorrow. A task left undone, a phone call avoided, a responsibility pushed aside. At first, it feels harmless, just a grain of sand in your mind. But leave it there, and day by day, that grain grows heavier. By the time you finally turn back to it, it's no longer a grain. It has become a boulder, blocking your path. This is how fear works. It feeds on delay. The longer we wait, the bigger it grows, not because reality changed, but because our imagination fed it. What could have been solved in 10 minutes now feels like a monster. The Stoics warned us of this very thing. Fear is rarely in the event itself. It's in our interpretation of the event. The human mind is designed to protect us. But sometimes it overprotects. It catastrophizes, turns small risks into certain disasters. Modern psychology confirms this. The longer you avoid something, the scarier it becomes. Think about a work presentation. On day 1, you feel a little nervous. By day 3, you're thinking, I'll probably forget my words. By the night before, you're lying awake, heart racing, haunted by visions of standing frozen while the entire room laughs. The presentation didn't change, your imagination did. Or think about avoiding the doctor. A small symptom appears, fatigue, a cough, a mole that looks different. Instead of checking, you delay. A week passes, then a month, and in your mind, the whisper begins. Maybe it's serious. Maybe it's too late. You suffer more in imagination than in reality. And often, when you finally go, the result is far lighter than the nightmare you built. Seneca, one of the great Stoics, said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And he was right. Fear grows not because life is unbearable, but because we let our minds inflate it. So what's the solution? The answer isn't to wait until fear magically disappears. Waiting only feeds it. The answer is action. Small, early, decisive action. Here's the paradox. We often think we need courage before we act. But in truth, courage is born through action. Epictetus reminded us, courage is not a condition for action. Courage is the product of action. If you wait to feel fearless before moving, you'll wait forever. But if you take even the smallest step forward, while trembling, while uncertain, you begin to shrink fear in the very act of moving. Let's make this practical. Afraid of public speaking? Don't wait until you feel confident. Write an outline today. Tomorrow, practice for 5 minutes in front of a mirror. The next day, rehearse with a friend. Each small action chips away at the illusion of fear until what once felt impossible becomes manageable. Afraid of the doctor? Don't sit with the anxiety for weeks. Just pick up the phone. Schedule the appointment. That one simple act, dialing the number, shifts control back into your hands. Afraid of starting a project? Don't wait until you have the perfect plan. Open your laptop, write the first sentence, sketch the first idea, begin. Because once you start, momentum takes over, and fear loses its grip. I'll share a personal story. Years ago, I had a project I kept postponing, a conversation I dreaded, research I avoided, excuses piling up. Every day I delayed. The fear grew louder. What if I fail? What if I'm not ready? Finally, one morning, I forced myself to take just one small step. I drafted a rough outline. Not perfect, not complete, just a start. And instantly, the fear shrank. The project didn't feel like a giant anymore, it felt like a path. Looking back, I realized the hardest part was never the work itself. The hardest part was taking that first step. That's the lesson. Fear thrives in imagination, but it dies in action. So here's my challenge to you. What fear are you feeding right now with delay? What phone call, decision, or responsibility are you pushing off until tomorrow? Instead of asking, how do I get rid of the fear? Ask, what is the smallest step I can take right now, today, before fear grows bigger? Then do it, not later, not tomorrow, now. Because every time you act early, you send yourself a powerful message. I am in charge. My mind's stories will not control me. And repeat that enough times. It becomes an unshakable belief. The Stoics weren't interested in waiting for the perfect conditions. They believed in moving forward, step by step, even in discomfort, because life doesn't reward hesitation, it rewards those who dare to act. Fear will always whisper, but you don't have to listen. You don't have to let it grow into a monster. You can cut it off while it's still small, by moving, by doing, by acting early. So the next time fear appears, remember this. Courage doesn't come before action. Courage is born in action. And every small step you take is not just progress, it's a victory over fear itself. Habit 7. Take ownership of your setbacks. Failure. It's a word that makes most people cringe. But let me tell you something that may surprise you. The first failure is not what truly hurts you. The real danger is what happens after, your reaction to that failure. The event itself, a failed project, a lost relationship, a missed opportunity, is just that, an event. Painful, yes. Disappointing, absolutely. But the event is not the end. What comes next is what defines your life. Do you react impulsively, blaming, complaining, sinking into self-pity? Or do you pause, breathe, and respond with awareness? That difference determines whether you stay down or rise stronger. Think of two people who both lose their jobs. The first reacts with anger. This is unfair. I didn't deserve this. They curse their boss, drown in bitterness, and weeks later, they're stuck. No plan, no hope, just resentment. The second feels the same shock, the same pain, but instead of reacting, they pause and ask, what did I learn here? What skills can I build? What opportunities might this open? Then they update their resume. Take a course, reach out to new connections. Months later, they're in a better role than before. Same event, two very different lives. The difference wasn't the failure. It was the response. The Stoics taught that events lie outside your control, but your response is always within your hands. Reaction is instinct, response is choice. Epictetus once said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Most people read that line and nod. But to live it, that's where the real power is. I've lived this myself. Years ago, I launched a project I believed in deeply. I poured months of work into it, only to watch it collapse. At first, I wanted to blame everyone else, the timing, the market, even the people around me. But then I asked myself, what good comes from blame? None. The only thing I truly controlled was my response. So I chose to study what went wrong, adjust my approach, and try again. That shift didn't erase the pain, but it transformed the failure into fuel. This is the upward spiral of Stoicism. Failure, right pointing arrow, reflection, right pointing arrow, lesson, right pointing arrow, growth. But there's also a downward spiral. Failure, right pointing arrow, blame, right pointing arrow, helplessness, right pointing arrow, even greater failures. Which spiral you enter depends entirely on your response. So let me ask you, the last time you failed, what did you do with that pain? Did you let it drag you down? Or did you claim responsibility for your next step? Because taking responsibility is not a burden, it's a form of power. You may not control what happened, but you can always control what happens next. Habit 8. Always ask, what truly helps right now? When life gets hard, our minds love to escape into two traps: complaining and overthinking. We complain because it feels good to release frustration. We overthink because it feels like we're solving the problem. But here's the truth: neither actually helps. Complaining makes you weaker. Overthinking makes you anxious. And the problem? It's still there. The Stoics offered a simple tool to cut through this fog. A single question. What truly helps right now? It's simple, but it's powerful, because this question separates the useful from the useless. Complaining feels good, but it's useless. Fantasizing about every worst-case scenario feels like preparation, but it changes nothing. Action, no matter how small, brings real strength. Let's look at an example. After an argument, most of us replay every word in our heads, sometimes for hours. But does that help? No, it only steals sleep. Instead, if you ask, what truly helps right now? The answer might be, write down your feelings. Prepare a calmer way to speak tomorrow. Or simply rest so you can think clearly in the morning. That is useful. Or think about a daunting project. Your mind instantly spins with fear. What if I fail? What if it's too much? That mental loop feels like work, but it's just anxiety wearing a disguise. If you ask the right question, the answer might be, open the laptop. Write the first 3 steps. Clear the desk so I can focus. That is useful. I remember a time when I was stuck in my own head, worrying about all the things that could go wrong with a big opportunity. The more I thought, the heavier it felt. Then I asked myself, what truly helps right now? The answer wasn't another hour of overthinking. It was sending one email, confirming one detail, taking one small step forward. And just like that, the weight lifted. This habit is powerful because it brings you back to the present. The mind loves to wander into the past with regret, or into the future with fear. But the only place you can actually do something is here, now. So here's your challenge. The next time your mind spirals into complaint or worry, stop and ask, what truly helps right now? Then act on the answer, no matter how small. Because that question is more than a mental trick, it's a compass. It redirects your energy away from wasted thought and toward meaningful action. And over time, those small, useful actions stack up into enormous strength. Habit 9. Focus on what nurtures growth. Let me ask you something. At the end of the day, do you ever feel exhausted yet strangely unfulfilled? You've answered emails, responded to messages, scrolled through endless notifications, tidied up here and there, and still, when you look back, you wonder, what did I actually accomplish today? That's the trap of busyness. It feels like progress, but it's not. Busyness scatters your energy into 100 little things. Progress, on the other hand, is when your energy is directed toward what truly matters. The Stoics understood this deeply. They taught that we cannot control everything, but we can always choose where to place our attention. And wherever attention goes, growth follows. If you focus on the trivial, you cultivate fatigue. If you focus on the meaningful, you cultivate progress. Picture 2 people. The first begins the day bouncing from one task to another. By evening, they're drained, but nothing of real value has moved forward. The second person pauses in the morning and asks, what is truly worthy of my focus today? They choose one task that matters, finishing the key part of a project, practicing a skill, investing in health. By evening, even if they did only that one thing, they've advanced noticeably. This is the power of focus. It transforms effort into growth. Think about it in your own life. Are you scattering your energy across distractions, social media, endless news, trivial tasks? Or are you channeling it into things that nourish you, relationships, health, purpose, learning? When I first started writing, I made the mistake of spending most of my time tweaking small details, answering every message, chasing every notification. I felt busy but wasn't improving. The real progress came when I set aside 2 hours a day for deep, focused writing. No distractions, no excuses. Over time, those hours stacked into books, scripts, and work I'm proud of. That's the difference between busyness and progress. Here's how you can apply this habit. Choose one important task each day. Ask, if I only accomplished one thing today, what would make the biggest difference? Then do it first. Say no to distractions. Not everything deserves your attention. Each yes to the trivial is a no to growth. Invest in what compounds: skills, health, meaningful relationships. These are seeds that, if nourished daily, will grow into lifelong rewards. Because here's the truth: you can't do everything, but you can always do the most important thing. And over time, those focused efforts will build a life of substance. Habit 10. Take charge of your life today. Now we arrive at the final habit, and in many ways, the most important. All the other habits are useless if you don't embrace this one. Take full ownership of your life. Starting now, this means no more blaming the past. No more blaming your parents, your boss, your partner, the government, the economy, or fate itself. Because every time you blame, you hand away your power. You say, my life is in their control, not mine. The Stoics made a crucial distinction. Responsibility does not mean fault. To take responsibility doesn't mean you caused everything that happened to you. But it does mean you have the power to act from this moment forward. And that is freedom. The past may be full of mistakes, injustices, and pain, but responsibility begins here, in the present, when you decide your next step. The instant you stop blaming, you stop being a victim. You reclaim the ability to change. Think of anyone who has overcome great adversity. The common thread is not luck. It's not that they had an easy life. It's that at some point, they said, I will take responsibility. I will not let my past dictate my future. That decision is the turning point. I remember a friend who grew up in a difficult environment. For years, he told himself the story: I can't succeed because of where I came from. That story kept him stuck. One day, he realized something powerful. While he couldn't change his past, he could change what he did next. That moment of ownership transformed him. He started studying, networking, building his skills. Today, he lives a life he once thought was impossible. The difference wasn't his circumstances, it was the moment he chose responsibility over blame. So let me ask you, what story are you telling that keeps you stuck? I can't because of them. I can't because of my past. I can't because of this system. The Stoics would look you in the eye and say, you may not control what happened, but you always control your response. Here's how to live this habit. Stop rehearsing blame. Catch yourself when you start pointing fingers. Pause. Remind yourself, blame gives away my power. Shift the question. Don't ask, who caused this? Ask, what can I do now? Act today. Ownership is proven not in words, but in steps. Take one action, no matter how small, that moves you forward. Because here's the liberating truth. When you take responsibility, you stop waiting for the world to rescue you. You stop waiting for circumstances to magically change. You begin to create change yourself. This is why this habit matters most. Without responsibility, all the other habits collapse. But with it, every habit becomes a weapon in your hands. Calmness, focus, persistence, courage, they all flow from the choice to own your life. So let this be your turning point. Today, not tomorrow. Decide. I will no longer be a victim. I will be the author of my story. Because in the end, Stoicism is not about controlling the world. It's about controlling yourself. Not about erasing difficulty, but about refusing to surrender your freedom. And once you live this way, no one, not your past, not other people, not even circumstances, can take that freedom away. And now, we've arrived at the end of this journey. We've walked through 10 Stoic habits, 10 tools you can use to reclaim your self-control. to stop wasting energy on worry and complaints, and to direct your strength toward real solutions. Let's pause for a moment and reflect. What do all these habits have in common? Whether it was staying calm in the storm of emotion, acting before fear grows too large, or focusing your attention on what truly matters, they all point to one central truth. Your real power lies not in controlling circumstances, but in controlling your response. The world will never run out of problems. Life will always bring setbacks, conflicts, delays, and disappointments. But here's the liberating secret. Those problems are not what shape your life. Your response to them is. Think about it. Two people can face the exact same hardship, job loss, rejection, illness. One drowns in self-pity, blame, and despair. The other pauses, accepts, adapts, and grows stronger. Same event, two different outcomes. The difference wasn't luck. The difference was ownership. That's why responsibility is not a burden, it's freedom. Most people hear the word responsibility and think of weight, duty, or blame. But the Stoics saw it differently. Responsibility means you are free to act, free to change, free to transform. You no longer wait for someone else to rescue you, because you know you already hold the tools. So, as you leave this video, I want you to remember this. Focus on solutions, not problems. Focus on what you can do, not on what you cannot. Focus on being the master of your mind, not the victim of your circumstances. Maybe right now, you're standing at a crossroads in your life. You're facing stress at work, a strained relationship, or maybe just the quiet frustration of feeling stuck. You might be tempted to say, "It's not my fault, it's just the way things are." But the moment you say that, you hand away your power. What if instead you asked, "What can I do right now? What habit can I practice today that moves me one step closer to strength, clarity, and freedom?" That question alone can change the course of your life. Because here's the truth. The 10 habits we explored aren't just ideas for a video. They are tools, real, practical tools you can use starting today. Write them down, practice them, fail and practice again. Over time, they won't just be habits. They'll become who you are. You'll be the person who stays calm when others panic. The person who acts instead of complains. The person who owns their mistakes and grows from them. The person who focuses not on everything, but on what truly matters. The person who no longer blames the past or circumstances, but chooses, day after day, to live with intention. That's the kind of person Stoicism was meant to create. Not cold, emotionless statues, but men and women of clarity, courage, and resilience. People who can stand in the middle of chaos and still move forward with purpose. So here is my final message to you. Don't surrender your life to circumstances. Don't let fear, blame, or distraction steal your energy. Choose to take back control. Choose to focus on solutions, not problems. Choose to master yourself, even when the world is unsteady. Because the world doesn't need more people who complain. It doesn't need more people who wait for change. It needs people who lead themselves first, people who prove, through their actions, that true freedom isn't found in controlling the world, but in controlling the self. And that person, that leader, that master of self-control, can be you. So don't wait. Start today. One pause, one action, one decision at a time. And over days, weeks, and years, you'll look back and realize you've built something extraordinary, not a life free of problems, but a life full of power, clarity, and resilience. The Stoics would call that wisdom. We call it freedom.